Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we're back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. My name is David Peace and Steve Spade is here. Steve, how are you doing?
Good, guys. How are you?
Great. So we have a very special guest this week. We've Alexander Marsh, as the magic community knows him. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
Doing really well. Thanks so much for being here. So I guess we'll start off with the age-old question of how did you get into this weird magic world, and also kind of why did mentalism seem to be the place that you've found your niche or your love?
So I got into magic like when I was really young. I was kind of into magic. Like Paul Daniels was on TV all the time for some reason in the 90s, and I had a Paul Daniels magic kit. I had a book on magic. I even had a book on ventriloquism, all sorts of stuff. I was an only child, so I was sort of left to amuse myself. But I remember when David Blaine came on the scene, I suddenly learnt, things with loops and the ambitious card, which back then I called Fruit Loops, because he does it on a guy who signs his name as Fruit Loops. I thought the Fruit Loops trick,
The Fruit Loops trick, yeah.
The Fruit Loops trick. But I got into mentalism specifically. Like, it was like most mentalists of about my age, because I saw Darren Brown on TV. Like a late night repeat before he was Darren Brown. Long before he'd done Russian roulette, he just maybe made 2 specials, Mind Control, and it was just like a late night repeat on E4. And I watched it and went, wow, this is great. And then I was sort of into memory tricks at the time as well. I had a book on learning memory, mnemonics and that sort of stuff. And it recommended some books, and some were magic books like Harry Lorraine and stuff. And then I sort of saw like, oh, this is a thing. Mentalism's a thing. I quite like the look of that. So, and then you start performing it and you get bitten by the bug, don't you? And you get those reactions. You're like, oh, I could do more of this.
Yeah, it's very similar to me. Like, because I started off with the David Blaine special, going, oh my god, like I'm gonna take magic more seriously. I love this, and then it's like doing like my David Blaine impression, and then you see Darren Brown, and it's like I'm gonna do my Darren Brown impression from now on. For a bit.
I'm gonna stop wearing a t-shirt and jeans. I'm gonna wear a 3-piece suit.
Exactly.
trim my beard. Yeah.
There's so much of that. Yeah, sales of tweed must have gone through the roof when Darren became popular.
Fob watches, yeah.
Yeah, fob watches. Yeah.
When you said performing then and like getting out there, were you always creating your own stuff, or where did that whole like creating magic and releasing magic come into your career?
I released a book a long time ago, maybe 2008 or something like that, just of some original ideas. But creating stuff, when I first started performing, it was other people's things. It was stuff it was Richard Osland's from his DVD set that he did with L&L, and Banachek's one and stuff like that. Bob Cassidy stuff. I was a big fan of Bob Cassidy's work, and even now, I'm a billet guy, so I do my own versions of envelope test or name place. I have my own spins on those. But in terms of creating my own stuff, I guess I didn't like a lot of stuff. I sort of read a routine and go, that sounds amazing, and then you look at the method and go like, oh, that's rubbish. So I had to try and I like that effect, so how do I get to that? So I guess it's that influence of Darren, where he had this whole thing. I'm sure we've all read them, Pure Effect and stuff, where it's what does he call it? Invisible compromise. There's always a compromise between what you want to be able to do, like just think of any name, boom, I tell you what it is. There's going to be a compromise in between. So pick the one that's just the cleanest or the neatest. I don't necessarily agree with the invisible compromise, but just like if it's logical for someone to write something down or pick something, then make it part of the process. So yeah, I've always been sort of a creative person. Like I studied art and design and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's just creating my own stuff or methods or routines was just a frustration of like not liking what was out there and thinking like, oh, it'd be better if it was like this or whatever.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at that. Like, you don't like the method, you want to go like your own way, because it is that time. Sometimes you see the trailer or the description, you're like, oh, this is a miracle, and then you get the magnet and bit of string, and it's like, oh, no.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Or
and
it's
also, also as a working performer now, when I start watching the instructions or something, and it's like, do this, do that, fold this, do this, like, I'm not doing this. I'm doing this before every performance.
Yeah, you don't want it. You want everything to be like quick, easy to get in of, easy to get out of. Just get it to work every time.
I want to reach into my pocket, and that routine's here. I want to reach in here, that routine's here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting when you're working on stuff like that, because some of the stuff that you've released that I use, like Forgotten Princess, I think I always have it in my wallet. I think I was talking to Steve about it recently, and I was like, it's one of the tricks that gets such a strange reaction, because it's like,
I love it because
people don't know what's going on. It's confusion,
just like,
but a good type.
Yeah, and it's that I always describe it like this. I think in like the Penguin lecture, and also that you get this reaction when they're like, it's like you get those 3 beats from the spectator. It becomes that thing when someone's. Do you remember talking about Darren again? But do you remember when he did that Invisible Man bit on his TV show where he's hypnotized this guy so he can't see him, and he does the whole bandage thing. So it's very theatrical. It looks amazing. But we're not experiencing that. We can see Darren, but we're experiencing it through the spectator, which is kind of what Blaine did, wasn't it? Like put the camera on the spectator and see their reactions. And I like the Forgotten Princess because it's all about this experience this one person's having. Everyone else sort of gets to enjoy it through their faces. Yeah. But that's again that thing of frustration of like, I liked the method for the Princess card trick is like, I love it because it's a genuine psychological trick. It works on psychology mostly. And it's just this throwaway trick that everyone had on their website for years. I just thought there's got to be a way to reframe this so it is as good as it could be. And like add a number pad. Like I don't like add a number tricks, even if they're on a cell phone or a mobile phone. But there's got to be a better thing that we can do with them. I mean, everyone's doing the today's date thing with the old toxic, but like an add number pad can switch a piece of paper for another bit of paper. So there's sort of like a dozen things that could potentially be done with that, other than, oh look, I've predicted the total.
Yeah, I think my favorite moment in the Forgotten Princess trick is when you're like, people who kind of know the trick, but they might have seen it before. When you put the card back and it's still gone, and they're like, "Wait, what?" That's like the best. Exactly. It's the best reaction you can get to it.
That's that second when they're like, "Oh."
Yeah, we were up at the Pendulum Summit there recently, and Dave had it in the wallet, and it came out, and he was showing it to somebody, and I was just watching. I was like, oh, it's that one. I thought it was the original, would say, handling. And then when he put it back in, you could just see the look of confusion on their face. It was like, they didn't know what day of the week it was. It was just that, like you said, that blankness. It's great.
It is. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not a magician fooler, it's a magician. Oh, I know. Oh, hang on. I saw, it's in Harry Anderson, Harry the Hat. The American performer, he passed away now. He used to needle through your arm and stuff. He had a bit on his lecture I saw where he's doing the 21 card trick. But he messes it up on purpose because when you do something and then you put it down, their card is 18 from the top or something like that. So he starts doing it and then getting it wrong, and all the magicians are like, he's getting it wrong. And he goes like, oh, I've messed this up. I'll just read your mind. And he does it, but because he knows the location of the card, he knows exactly what it is now.
Oh, it's so good.
Just that messing with people, it's always fun.
Yeah. It is a thing where you can really like freak someone out with using like a method, doing a trick that they think they know, and then switching it up at the last second into like going somewhere completely different. Is like it's such an interesting concept of a routine.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun. That's always the fun of magic, is sort of leading someone down a garden path and then going, haha, we're not actually here, we're there.
Yeah. Wait till like starting off with like in the Blaine stuff. Did you still perform like even casually just regular magic, ambitious card routine or Fruit Loops type tricks, or did you just stick completely away?
I've only ever performed mentalism. I've never performed magic. I have sort of casually done it, I guess, with friends. Actually, when I used to do quite a few weddings and stuff, as a walk around performer, always mentalism. But kids always follow you around, don't they?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine gave me a great tip, which was like, what you should do is just gather all the kids and say, like, if I show you something now, promise not to keep following me around. Is that good? And then I do ambitious card. I just keep doing it. Card in the mouth, watch it jump to the top, all of those things. They'd be happy. They'd be blown away. Their parents would be happy because they've been left alone for 10 minutes at a wedding. But so I think I've only ever done ambitious card a little bit, or just for fun. Like I tour with Champions of Magic, and sometimes we bring in new crew members and stuff, and they normally don't really know much about magic. So slowly they start to work stuff out, and it's kind of fun on the bus, or when you're backstage, just to show them some random bits that you know or you do or you have in your wallet or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's interesting when you can like pull out a trick for people who have watched the show every day, and then you pull out something else that can really like throw them off and make them feel that they actually don't know what's happening. I remember Steve, you talked about that with the staff at a venue where you're performing lap, then you hit the waitress or something that's like completely from left field.
Yeah, definitely. And even we had Eric Ross on, and he was talking about that he does his freak show magic, but then later on he'll just do some random close-up stuff just to freak people out, just because that's kind of cool. It's always nice to do that. I mean, I would imagine if you had met any of the big performers of the day off stage, you'd expect them to have something that they can perform close up, in a sense.
Yeah, it'd probably be something they just like doing for fun rather than if it's the show or their style or whatever. Yeah,
Jeff McBride said he always carries a biting quarter or whatever, and he calls it his lunch money or whatever, and he bites it and spits it back on, and apparently that's his pocket trick type thing, that if you catch him on the hop, that's what he's going to show you.
Yeah, and Houdini was the king of cards. You could just see him backstage, probably like messing with a deck of cards and then going out and chucking into water. Back palming away as he goes, just to try
producing cards and then going, better get that milk jug.
If only he was able to get a plastic deck back then, a waterproof deck, what would he have created?
It would have been mad. When you said that you're touring with the Champions of Magic. What's that like performing on like those bigger stages, and do you do the same set every night, or do you like mixing it up for yourself?
It's the same set every night, but it's sort of changed over the years. Bits come in, bits come out, but it's mostly the same set. But because what I'm doing is mind reading, I'm the mentalist in the show, then it's always slightly different for me. Like I do a Q&A in the show, so that's kind of a bit of improv for me. Like I get the information and I just sort of jazz around it and have fun with it. And I don't take myself too seriously, so I kind of have to make the audience laugh. We have fun. I make quips and that sort of stuff. So it's always fun. It keeps it fresh. Whereas I could only imagine just sort of doing the same, pointing. Or there isn't really a manip act in the show, but it's just all the moves are the same like a robot every show. That's get a bit dull, I imagine, but I haven't had that experience.
Yeah, it is the nice thing with mentalism is there is a lot of improv in it. Like even with some magic where you're bringing someone up on stage, you don't know what they're going to say. Like with Steve doing the smash and stab or the over the head, like you don't know what sort of character you can get up on the stage is going to change the show completely.
100%.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those things where if you've got like a good solid script, you just do the solid script. If it's just kind of the audience isn't really with you or whatever, but if you get a fun person, then you just let that run, and that becomes the show for that particular night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you're the right person, it can change the whole dynamic of everything you're doing. From right from the start. And it, like you said as well, you're going to try to hold on to them for as long as you can do, because like the audience love them. They love being on stage. This is all working really well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of sometimes it's great, especially if you can keep referring back to that person, throughout the show. Like it becomes a naturally occurring callback. Because also, what's great about live entertainment is the audience should know and feel like this is happening for us right now, and they might do another show tomorrow, but it won't be the same. It's that sort of you want that feeling, that vibe in the room where they just like, oh, this any other night we wouldn't have seen that. That was amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, those things of like, oh, I wasn't going to do this, but I'll do it anyway moment that you say every time and then go into it from there.
Every time,
you're special.
Brand new.
Yeah. We're really just going to give it a go. It's not something, I usually don't do this, but you're such a good crowd. I'm going to do a Q&A act. And then just go into things.
Yeah.
I always find is as well, like with those sort of things, that like you do get a bit of a panic when you come from magic into mentalism of the peak or the billet work of what if I can't read it? What if it's ridiculous? What if I don't know what's going on? And it's like, because I do think, like, even for myself, I found when I was going into it that I'd force every time to avoid the peak, just out of the fear of the peak going wrong. I'm like, I'll just force it. I was like, it'll be fine.
I did that same thing when I first wanted to do a Q&A or something that felt like a Q&A. I just used an OM box, a switching box, and just forced the whole thing. So, like, you're going to read someone else's, that way you don't think I've got information on people in the room. But then I just knew the beats and reveals, and I could just practice doing that without having to worry about, like, the information being fresh and new to me. But yeah, you're right. That is that kind of hurdle of like I've had with billet work or any kind of work, I've had everything go wrong. Not only is it unreadable, it's not in the right place, and they've written on the back of it, or like they've not done anything, or they've written their own name. Like it's just like, oh no, and then you can only come up with a solution when you have to, because the conclusion of the trick means you have to come up with something on the spot. So under pressure is the only way you can do it, but that makes it scary.
Yeah, I actually learned center tear in real time because I was going to do Acidus Novus, but they didn't write in the right. They wrote in the middle.
They just wrote it in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned how to do a center tear right in front of them. It was like the worst. I literally like unfolded the center of my palm and did, oh, this is tough. Okay, thank you. And now I know what it is.
Even in 13 steps, it suggests as one of the ways to peak the center is go. It's like, oh, that's revolting.
Do my cough? No, I'm good.
There's no mucus here. That's what
Oh, a touch of
it was probably back in the olden times where everyone had like pleurisy or something.
Yeah.
I can continue the show. I'm not going to die anytime soon.
Not during COVID. That wouldn't fly.
That's true. Yeah.
There was a peak in 13 steps actually through a glass where you like cup a wine glass and you get the peak through the glass. That was pretty cool. I remember seeing that years ago.
I'm not sure if it's in 13 steps. It might be in something where it's like through a crystal ball. You steal it and on the crystal ball and look.
You got that. Very cool.
Just be careful you don't have liquid in the glass, because then everything will be backwards and it'll be screwed.
It's true. It's true.
Like you wrote red wine. Yeah. My glass of Coke, and damn it, I can't read anything. Yeah, I'll do the next bit. But yeah, it is one of those worries. There's always like the justification of having the person write it like clearly on the card is always something that people talk about. Like one of the things I always like is going, I want you to write it clearly in block capital letters. I'll explain why in a minute. And then when I have them think of the word, I say, I want you to think about it. Join a sing-along cartoon with the ball bounces from word to word. I want you to imagine that happening from letter to letter. And like those sort of things, because you justify now them writing in block capital letters because you're having a ball bounce from letter to letter and stuff like that. Do you use any of those sort of techniques to try like encourage people to write clearly?
So sometimes just being direct is just saying like, please write clearly. But I have like I always try to not think of it as justifying it. I try to think of it as motivating it, because then that just reframes the way you think about it. Because like there's a lot of mentalists I've heard, especially a few years ago, would say like, I'm getting you to write this down because, and no one's asked them why you're getting to write it down. They're kind of over justifying it because it'll put it in your memory better or whatever. I tend to just say, I'm getting you to write it down because in case we need some proof later on. Makes sense. It doesn't really work with a center tear, but I don't tend to do a center tear unless it fits. I kind of make up a reason on the spot. If I'm in a big show and we have a camera moving around, write nice and clear, just in case we need to show the camera later so everyone can see. But make sure the camera doesn't see right now, and blah 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 blah. Or I just say, you're going to write this down nice and clearly right here, and fold it back up when you're finished. And often, if I've pre-written instructions, I'll put those in capital letters, or I've written very neatly. However, I find with words and names that if it's not all in capital letters, it's easier to read quickly. It's a bit like street signs or motorway signs. I think in America, in some places, they're all in block capital letters. They're quite difficult to read. But here in the UK, we have them as a capital letter at the start and then lowercase, because you sort of remember the shape of a word. You don't really read the word house or whatever. You just see capital H-O-U-S. You just remember the shape of a word. So if you're glancing it quickly, it means you just recognize the shape, especially with names. And you come up with a stumbling block if it's a name you're not, familiar with. Like I've had Siobhan spelled to be Anne, or I've had a couple of Sashas, but luckily Saoirse Ronan is very famous. So I was like, no. But you just sort of get used to it. But making sure they write clearly, just kind of being direct, but putting it within the just surrounding it by other information. So you're going to write here, make sure you write nice and clearly, and when you're done, fold it up. It's that sort of Kent and Nepo wonder word stuff where you say instruction and next thing, and knowing that most people only remember the last thing, but this person knows to write clearly.
I think it's really good advice to have like the capital and the small, because you do like, it's like those puzzles where the letters are mixed up in the middle, but you can still read it because the shape, the start and the beginning
Yes,
is right,
exactly that.
and all
Exactly
those
that.
sort of things that really help. Because I think it is one of those things with the names where it's like foreign languages and that sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
remember I was performing in a comedy club, and there was a meetup group of people from across Europe who were all living in Cork. So I came in there. It was Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and German people. And I was just like, I'm going to
Oh,
go back
boy.
to forcing. Forcing works perfectly.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
true.
get any names
And
written down here. It'll be fine.
a good get out of that is like get them to think of a celebrity, a famous person, and clarify you mean incredibly famous, so everyone in the world would know who this person is, and not a sports person because I don't follow sports or something like that. So therefore, when you see that name and it's just a squiggle, like I've done it with like electronic gizmos as well, and they don't hardly ever they work perfectly. You never go like, wow, that is crystal clear what I've got there. You've got like something. And it being a celebrity or a place name, like a country or a town or a city, because that sort of narrowed the list in your mind, but it's still a huge list. It means you can look at it and go, I think that's that. But yeah, I'd say that's a good tip. Is just but the foreign names or names you're not used to, like in the UK, it would be more Christian names we would know them as. So if you see a Christopher, got it straight away. Richard, James, Tom, all these sorts of things. But names become slightly different. Like working in America as well, we travel around so much in different states. There's fairly unique spellings of names in America, and it's just it almost becomes like if you ever get a word or a name that is difficult to just quickly glance or read, try and steal it away and have it so you can keep looking at it, or just kind of take a mental snapshot of it, and then it becomes like a drawing duplication. You just copy the shape that you see. And sometimes doing that, you'd be like, I'm writing the name Michael. I got it. Michael, yeah.
This
And
name has
then you'll
become a
get close.
drawing duplication. It's like,
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
a drawing duplication. It'll be fine. You'll get there in the end.
I always think it's funny when we were talking about this as well recently, but when you see a mentalist and when they bring somebody up on stage, they ask them their name, and then it kind of defeats the whole purpose. I'm just like, that could have been the act,
it could have been. And sometimes, like in a Q&A, I guess people's names, but I'm always delighted when I get it right. And it's sort of like, some reason it's guessing your name is harder for me. But it's one of those things where it's like you make you're the expert on the mind reading if you're a mind reader. So you kind of make the rules, and people could argue. And you go like, it's not like movies. How silly that you thought it was like a movie. I could just know what it was. There's like a quote from someone. I'm going to misremember this, but it was about vampires. It was this director and his son. His son was writing a film about vampires, and he was struggling. So he asked his film director father, like, I'm struggling with this. What should I do? And he said, well, what do we know about vampires? He goes, well, they can't go out in sunlight. They eat blood. They drink blood. They can't go near garlic. And his father goes, no. What we know about vampires is they don't exist. So make up whatever you like. I was like, oh yeah, that's true.
That's very good. Yeah. You want to have it. I'd always be like, just the first thing that came into my head is like, you never think your own name, so that's fine. I'm not sitting here thinking, I am David. That is who I am. That's just my constant internal monologue.
Written on the back of your hand, you're like, I'm David.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where people are like, okay, I'm thinking of something. Tell me what it is. And it's like, it's not how it works.
Yeah.
How does it work? I need you to write it down so I can peek it.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. You kind of need to sort of socially engineer it into a point at which it doesn't feel weird that now you have to write it down.
Yeah, I think that just accuse them of being liars. If you're going to lie, so we need proof for later.
Yeah,
you're probably going to lie to me. That's just who you are.
Cassidy's thing, wasn't it? Bob Cassidy's thing was always like, you're all scum, basically. You're going to make me look like an idiot.
I'm not going to take it. With that sort of stuff, for people who would catch you like off stage or something, what would be like your go-to performance? Would it be like a drawing duplication or a name thing, or what kind of
it
like
would always be
every day?
A drawing dupe, a drawing duplication, because it's automatically justified motivated why they have to draw it, because it's a drawing duplication. And I sort of have a spin on it that especially works especially well so casually, which is I asked them to think of something they could picture in their head, maybe even draw it, something simple that could be drawn. And they don't draw anything, they just think of it. And I make a an attempt, and the attempt that I make is the universal drawing, from Banachek Psychological Subtleties 1. I just sort of squiggle it. I'm like, I'm not really sure what this is. Does this look familiar? And there, a few things can happen. They could be like, oh my God, yes, that looks really like it. What have I drawn? Oh, I've drawn an ice cream cone, which is the best one, really. I'll be like, oh, I see what I've done there. Or if they go like, not really. I said, okay. So I'm going to get you to draw it. It's not like I'm saying like your imagination's so bad you have to draw it. Like, maybe it'll help me if you draw it. So you draw it for me, and when you're done, we'll put it back in my wallet. I'll take a card out, and now somehow I can just immediately duplicate it perfectly. What's especially nice is if I have my original sort of universal drawing, I sort of change the drawing slightly. Like I think this might be, maybe this is like a hat. Oh yeah, you've drawn like a wizard, or you change it to whatever it might be. But yeah, it's always a drawing duplication because it just sort of makes sense when I go like, have you got a pen? Actually, yeah, draw on this for me. Something simple, blah, 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 blah. And it's a little keepsake. If someone's come up to me after a performance, it could be because they want to book me, or it could just be, they might post about it on social media. So it's worth having something they can hold next to each other. Like, it's always terrible. There's photos of me in the press where they're holding a billet and an envelope and pointing. It's like, this doesn't look interesting or exciting, does it?
Yeah. It's not as exciting as Steve showing up to his press with like chains and handcuffs and like a big box.
That's the photo you want. Like whenever we have Champions of Magic, when we have a photographer in or videographer, there's not many photos or clips of me. It's the bit when someone's got their hands on my eyes like this. That's always the photo that's there. There's me going like this, and then that's it. Whereas they want to take photos of the escapologist or the illusionists. So yeah,
the human blindfold, like that picture, it's pretty cool.
Yes, yeah, enjoy that. I just got the human blindfold to sort of motivate why on earth I brought this person up. But yeah, it is good, and some people really push hard in your eyeballs. So I don't recommend it.
You're like, ow.
That's how do you spell gouge?
I actually did a blindfold routine in my last show that I did just like before the pandemic. I did use the see-through psychometry that you presented in the download.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I was so happy when I stumbled across that in Syzygy. I was like, "This isn't. Why have I never heard of this before?"
I did that routine. It was so good. What I love about it is that you can do like 50% of the routine genuinely blindfolded, which is great.
Yeah.
And then it was the second half of the routine is when I realized I have a massive degradation in one of my eyes. And it was the eye I was trying to do stuff with. It's like I was looking at it, I was like, okay, so it's 4 objects. No idea what 3 of them are. Pretty sure the 4th one's a hairband. So I'll leave that one till last. I'll go from there. And I was like, please. I was just like, it was just a blurry mess. And I was like, I think I should get my eyes tested. So that's
in the recording of that performance, all the objects are rubbish, I remember. Someone's like, some tobacco, a piece of chewing gum. There was at least one of them was a compact mirror thing. I could sort of think there was a butterfly on it or something. That was good. But it's just when I looked, went, is that a piece of gum? Another 10 minutes of this.
When you were saying that your eye was sore like that, Dave, I was envisioned you like with an eye patch on stage, and then you just bandaging up one eye as your blindfold.
I should literally tell people I'm pretty much blind in my right eye anyway, so I'm just going to blindfold my left eye. Trust me, I can't see out of this one anyway. It's fine.
I've got a doctor's note.
Yeah, that should be enough for people. Well, I do think that can be a nice image as well. Like if you use like medical gauze around your eyes or something to make the blindfold, it's one of those only images as the Mentalist that you can get of looking kind of like that Darren look he had when he was in the Oracle Act of that bandage around the head. It is quite a creepy image that you can have on stage.
That's true as well. And also, I think I have done it once or twice with tape. They're doing all the tape and stuff. But it's such a cliche thing now. I think there are so many Mentalists, and especially people in the entertainment booking world have all seen that Mentalists do that. So I assume they all think that maybe there's some sort of special tape you can see through or something. They might think that by now.
Yeah, you can definitely get it, because I think it's one of those things where I was doing Hook by Eric Ross with the fish hook at the mountain, the thing. So I bought out a first aid kit for that. Just like after the first person, they pulled the first string, I went and got a first aid kit and put it on the table. And then I was able to just use the gauze for the blindfold, so it looks justified and stuff as well.
Nice.
It's nice. But it is that it is one of those routines that's just like, I love the see-through psychometry, because it is one of those things. The method is just brilliant. It's like, how is this not the best way of doing it at any time? It's
and
a
also
go-to.
like it would apply to like you could do it with envelopes as well. I'm sure it's been written somewhere with envelopes. I was just like, oh yeah, of course. You can't see. There's other ways to do stuff. It's like, oh. And what's bizarre in Syzygy, it doesn't mention that you could also do the classic, object routine and describe one at the end.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that means I get to add my own little improvement on it. But it's one of those things, and it's just, I remember reading it and it's going like, oh, it's also one of those things where you can, if your bags don't show up or you are in a tight spot, you can just go buy some of those bags. They sell them in every Tesco Metro or whatever.
Yeah.
You can just buy them and then visit the
It's
haberdashery
good
section for no reason. And then
if you
go
if you can pull together your act from a Tesco or a hardware shop, I think you can genuinely travel the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you've got any special gizmos, you just keep them in your pockets when you go through the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I have a show coming up, a big Mentalism show coming up. I really need to go to Eason's and get some envelopes and cards and paper. And it's like, it's the weirdest thing anytime you go like, we do like a bookshop and I'm like, screw the books, where are the envelopes? I used to get, it's like the weirdest. It's the weirdest. As a performer, I always find when we go into like Eason's, it's weird because we're looking at stuff weird, or like any sort of stationery store. Or then when we go look at suits, it's like I was looking at new suits the other day, and I was like, "There's only 2 inside jacket pockets. That's not enough. I need at least the third
the little one down here as well. Yeah,
I need that one. It's the like." It's like, oh, that suit looks so good. And you're like, no pockets. Sorry, put it back. After the next.
It's like for my for a billet routine, I keep one of them in my waistcoat left pocket, waistcoat right pocket, and then I wore a different waistcoat for a show, and it doesn't have the pockets there, and I was just like, it feels like I've lost a limb. It's like so much of like ditching or doing stuff goes there. I'm like, whoa, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm like, my waistcoat is like business cards in one, wave in the other, ready to go at any moment. I can just reach into them. And then I was like, looking at waistcoats, I didn't have pockets. I was just like, what is this? Like, how am I meant to? Pocket management is everything.
I got a jacket sort of fixed. It was slightly torn, and the woman relined it on the inside. She said, "Oh, I noticed that the breast pocket had a hole in, so I sewed it up for you." I'm gonna cut that because that was there also a bit of fabric. She said, "Yeah, I don't know what that was." It's like, "Yeah, I need that." Yeah, a shoot went from my breast pocket down to my left jacket pocket. I was like, "Yeah,
that's brilliant."
I'm imagining it didn't tell you, and you go out on stage, and it's like, "Oh, what's the?"
And then this medallion in my pocket, in the lining of my coat.
This medallion has vanished. Ta-da! Thanks so much.
That'd be a great Karan's medallion where you got to cut the lining out of your coat. You got to get somebody up with the tweezers to take it out of your lining.
It's true. It's
a whole thing.
It could work well.
It's a real.
I always thought it'd be a funny idea if the master prediction system, the Malloy chess. If you're ever doing a show for magicians, you set it all up, and then instead of flying the box up in the air, you just fly the table up in the air. The magicians will be like, "Oh
yeah,
brilliant."
He's screwed now. One of the products that I got from you as well, this is just like me telling you how much I love your products, is the 1914, The Art of Stagecraft, which I thought was just it's such a good idea to have, because it's something that's really missing. And like the area that I was watching the most was like microphone handling, because it's one of the things that anytime you see a magician on stage and it's a handheld microphone, you know something's going to go wrong. Because it's just like, spectator, you come here, you're my mic stand, thanks so much, or like in the elbow and all that sort of stuff. Well, how did that whole project come together as an idea?
Oh, so I'm good friends with D. Christopher, who's sort of one half of the two that set up. Jack and D set up in 1914 and relaunched it again recently. But you were chatting with D, and he said, "What stuff have you got? What stuff do you want to release with us?" And I said, "I'm trying to work on this book of sort of performance tips and my knowledge of performing, because there's not much of that out there, and also doing PR as well. That was one whole chunk. And it's because during lockdown, I did one of Luca Volpe's lectures. He was doing these lectures through this Facebook group, Luca Volpe, and I have to say it like that. I was trapped. I had to get it out. And I sort of saw that I was sort of maybe the 10th or 15th person to do it. So like everything's going to have been covered. And like Mark Paul did one recently. Like he's going to have done all the other good mentalism stuff. So what can I talk about that maybe I'm an expert in, so to speak, which would be like, I guess, performing on stagecraft, because I've done so much of it with champions. We've done hundreds of shows. I have a lot of flight time when it comes to being a stage performer. So I just sort of wrote some notes for that. And then I started to try to write into a book, and it's just sort of torturous to write. It's sort of like lay a plan out, and then I start waffling, and I start, I've lost all the energy to do this now. So Dee said, we should do it like a masterclass then, like the masterclass.com stuff. It's like, oh yeah, let's do that. And then I think the plan is they want to do more, the art of things. And I know they're in talks with various people to do other stuff. But we just plotted out as this masterclass style video. So there's sort of chunks of video about certain topics and subjects. And there's also a bit about close up, because I had a little essay or a little ideas about structuring close up and how to make your props do more for you. That's in there as well. But I enjoyed it. Actually, we filmed it twice. Actually, we filmed it once at Dee's little studio, which is just like a photography studio, but kind of closed off to be filmed in. And then Jack, who's like a proper director, like has directed short films and won awards for them, was like editing it, and it's just like, it just doesn't look like masterclass. If you ever watch any masterclass things, they all look gorgeous. Like they have a beautiful location, and there's all these graphics and stuff. So he said we should shoot this in a theatre, and I said, I know people who own some theatres here in Norwich where I live. So and it was still lockdown, so they weren't busy. So I made a couple of calls, and we just went to this nice, beautiful little theatre. It's got this riser of seats in a red velvet, like how all theatres should look. And we just reshot the whole thing there. So I did it twice.
and then I'm showing you doing it the second time. It's like, it's not as good as the first. I said it better the first time.
I was genuinely worried about there was a couple of, I was like, I said something like really well the last time we did this. Can I nail it again? Because it's sort of me with a topic heading just sort of waxing lyrical for a moment about some bits. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. People who've seen it mentioned different things to me. I'm glad you mentioned the microphone technique thing, because that is something like I hate having to use a handheld, but I realized I used to do a lot of cabaret and burlesque shows, like a variety spot, and it's only ever going to be a handheld and a stand, so you just have to relearn a routine or redesign a routine around the fact that only one of your hands is going to be free, or you're going to have to be like with the microphone stand here, and how you're going to operate around it. And I realized, get a microphone and a stand and then practice. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, I literally went and bought a microphone to stand afterwards, because it's even the directionalness of the microphone. You try talking to the side of it, and it just cuts out if it's not the right mic or all that sort of stuff. It can be an absolute pain, because you see people. I used to go to the comedy clubs before, and I just put the microphone stand away and talk loudly. That was like my way of getting around it.
Me too.
Like, it's very tough.
And if it's a wide room, then that's not going to work either. Like if it's a small little tiny thing, like if it's basically a parlor show, but it's a bit big, you can just shout and they'll hear you. But if it's a wide room, people won't hear you over here.
See a performer on stage and you see them, like their mic technique or how they address the audience, whatever, you can tell how long they've been doing it just by seeing their initial walk on stage.
Yes, absolutely. That's the thing in the comedy world, isn't it? They're like good mic technique and stuff like that. And using the mic, and like comedians use the mic as like a prop. I do like a handheld, because it means you can control the volume of your voice. Whereas if the mic's here, it's only ever going to be at a certain volume, like at the side of your face. So like if you hold it away and shout, that's funny because it sounds quieter now, but you're shouting, or you can whisper directly into it.
Yeah.
It's
even when I do that version of the smash and stab or whatever, I always have the mic, but then I use an extra mic on the table to make more noise. So when I pop a cup, the mic is on the table. So there's loads of tricks and things you can do extra when you've got a handheld mic. 100%.
That's true. I also had a hypnotist tell me once that he likes a handheld mic because you can sort of talk to the punter, and then you can help reinforce, or let's say remind them of the suggestion they've got. So when you say to them, "What's your name?" you can take it away and say, "You can't remember." And the audience at large don't hear the "can't remember" bit, but then this person who's been slumped over for a little while might have forgotten what you told them, can remember now. They're not supposed to remember their names.
It was a hypnotist in Ireland. He's an elderly man now, but he was one of the top dogs at one stage, and I still think he does the odd show, and I won't name him, but anyone who's listening knows who I'm talking about. But every time he'd have the mic, he always had a pack on his hip. So he'd lean in and give an instruction, and then you blatantly see him kind of going, "I'm just going to wind that down," and you could just see him like on his hip, just turning it down. Then he'd say something else, and you could see him just turn it back up really fast. He used to be funny as hell. He used to do a lot of comedy and a lot of the college shows. And I remember seeing him early on, and he was doing it all the time. It would just be like, and sleep. No, close your eyes now and go to sleep, and it would just come back out again. It was just, it was constant. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's one of the things. I think even with comedians, it's like the putting the mic into the mic stand and taking it out of the mic stand are like the keys. Like how they take the mic out of the mic stand tells everyone in the room how good they are to begin the show.
And also the stand-up show, you see it like if you watch, if you ever see it live, or you go sit, or you watch live at the Apollo, you'll see that when they're doing their closing, this is my final routine. It's going to get the big laugh. And I say thanks, good night. They go get the stand and put it in front of them. And it's just, we all know that's the cue of like, okay, so this is the end now. People like to flag up this is going to be the end. And I like just like that silent way of doing it, because then it doesn't break the rapport. Because it kind of imagine you kind of have to, like even in like corporate show, I do kind of look at my watch, but how long have we got left? Do you want one more? Just to like flag up to the audience, like this is the last one. So if you're not enjoying it, don't worry, it's going to be over soon. If you are enjoying it, give me some noise at the end for this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely good to give people tips.
People that might know are like, oh, thank God, he just got the mic stand. It's nearly over.
It's so thank God. We're finishing it up for the night. It's one of those things. But I really encourage you to get that product, because people spend like hundreds on a new trick, but it's the actual performance things that we don't spend enough time on and maybe like really focus on. So it's definitely one of my best things I picked up during the pandemic, and I've got the show coming up now, so I'm going to be rewatching it to learn what to do.
And it's a good point as well. If you have a friend that's if you have a friend that's a comedian or something, though, it is good to talk to other people. I find from touring and doing shows with comedians over the years, you learn by just seeing the way that they're able to audience management, and that's a lot of magicians don't do that. They go out and they have the trick down, but they've got no stagecraft, or they got no rapport with the audience, or they can't build rapport, or they don't know how to build rapport. Because if you win them over early, you can kind of do whatever trick after that. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, basically, like if they like you, then they'll let you do whatever you want, really. I think I say that in the Stagecraft download. I think I say, like, as mentalists especially, not quite the same with magicians, but mentalists or hypnotists, we've got more in common with stand-up comedians than we have with illusionists. Despite the fact that we are illusionists and mentalists are in the same bubble of magic, we've got far more in common with the stand-up comedian. And also, like one of the bits of advice I always give to like newer performers is like, don't just only look at magic stuff and mental stuff. Watch other stuff. Watch comedians. Watch films. Watch documentaries. Go see stuff live. Watch stuff on YouTube. There's people's stand-up sets on YouTube, or even like contemporary circus shows. Watch something else, because you'll see what they're doing, and you can apply it to your own work. But otherwise, if you're just copying another magician or how you've seen a magician do it, you're just doing it how magicians do it. Like things like I always think with Snowstorm,
Yeah.
Everyone does it like Copperfield does it, because they're all copying Copperfield. It's like, why do they make the bits they've torn up wet? There's never a reason why. They all do it. It's like, why is it wet? If it's for a practical reason, like it's easier to palm now or switch, but that's never it. In fact, it would be better if they were just dry, because then when you're doing this, your expensive stool, they fluff off anyway, and you've got empty hands at the end. Like, why are they making it wet? Oh, it's because Copperfield made it wet. They've not thought about why they're doing it. They're just like, and then you get a wine glass, and you go like that, and then it goes.
Why is he wearing tweed? Because Darren wore tweed. That's why we wear tweed.
And I wear tweed because you've got a slightly gingery beard like me.
Yeah,
it just suits the gingery beard. These autumnal colours.
Yeah, it's that when the ginger beard kicks in, it's like you gotta get the at least wear a waistcoat. You don't have a choice.
That's true.
It's like, what's your character? I've got the beard. That's
your character.
Everything's the matching.
My character.
Yeah, even though and Darren copied my hairstyle, I had it first, so
that's
where it's going. Which is the way it's going. Do you have any like new releases or anything new you're working on for people that might be coming out soon? There was "Thy Will Be Done" came out soon, which again was another cool, because I think the free will principle is such an interesting routine as well. I think it's quite nice.
Well, I forgot anything new coming out. What am I up to next? Like, I'm chatting with Dee. So me and Dee, Christopher, as the 1914, are going to be at Magic Live in Vegas, which is in a couple of weeks, I think. So 1914 have our own stance. I'll be there doing that. But as if for new releases, I've got a couple of like things in the background. I'm trying to, I've released a lot of books and PDFs and stuff, and some of it's crept up into like the Penguin lectures or whatever, or other stuff. But I'm kind of thinking of like just compiling them all and making like a book, like a hardcover book. People can buy that. Kind of for my own benefit, really. Kind of an ego boost is what it is, really. But I started to do that and realized, like, oh, no one's going to buy this. It's going to be too big, and it's going to be like, I've already got this. I bought this already from Penguin for $9.99. Why am I buying it again in a book?
And within video, I could see you doing it.
Yeah, and the same thing with the stagecraft. I was writing it as a book, and then just doing it as like a masterclass style to camera. So, oh, this is much better. I much prefer this. Like I did in lockdown, I made my own little billet lecture. It's like 2 hours long, and it's just me in my house. Occasionally, my second penguin lecture. The cats interrupt me, but oh, there's one. Here we go. As if I'm
that
cute.
was like, oh, that was so cute. That was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to write down some ideas of like, here's what I've done this with billets, and here's a peek and this sort of stuff. And I was just like, if I just record myself to camera doing it, maybe that'll be good. And people seem to like it. So it's like, oh yeah. So maybe I'll do more video stuff, especially with the 1914, because I love working with them, and also their stuff just looks so good. Like, looks
packaging
nice.
And everything is amazing. Like I've got the packaging for Iris in front of me here, and it's just like I just keep looking at it. I'm like, it's so shiny. It's just like it's incredible. Like it's,
and also all the packaging looks like Dee's house. It's black, gold trim, and all sorts of stuff.
That's what it is. Because I think one thing with the Die Will Be Done actually is like, I think the free will principle is one of those principles that like kind of be explored in so many different ways. I think the Tower Card is a really interesting way of doing it. There's one of those routines that I'm like, I love the concept of just like 3 items and then predicting who has what and what's where. And it's like, it's one of those things that seems so simple, but there's always like that compromise is always there of the like, now you read it. No, now I'll read it. And when I wrote I meant you, and we'll go with it.
Yeah, it's true. This is like, it's a script now.
Yeah.
Like Steve Della has that dice version there. It's a book page or something. Will to Read. That's a really lovely version. But yeah, I was just I knew I wanted a prediction in a tarot card. So the image in the tarot card is the prediction. So I just had to think. I was just trying to think about what it could be, and then it became free will. And then I was just using the tarot card as is, and then Dee suggested we get it redrawn, so it's these actual 3 items, and then we added the watch thing, and we were like, "Oh, this is a good bet."
It's like the actual bit becomes the main trick you do then, and you don't do the original.
That's true.
trick
Yeah.
It's true. Like that.
Because there's a whole generation of people who've never heard of that. Like I know of that watch thing from Richard Ostler and others. He got it from the original source, which was Bev Bergeron. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you don't know it, then it's like a lot of magicians don't know billet work beyond the centre, for example, or something maybe from Carl Fulvers or something like that. So if you do anything that's like, if you do Acidus or something like that, it blows their mind because they just have never seen something like that before.
Yeah, because I love some of the billet work. Like with some of I'm actually doing the masterclass in Vanishing Ink with Mark Paul at the moment. He's got some billet stuff in there. Got like cramps in my hand trying to do like the movements over and over again. It's like I can't take it anymore. But yeah, I think like one of the peaks I love actually is Morgan Schreppler's Mind Invasion peak with the billet. You can get like a full peak of the billet with
I think I know the one.
Yeah, and it's like it's covered with a mistake as well, which I really like. I think it's a great way of covering up a billet work. Which I think one thing I always find with those sort of free will things as well, where there is a compromise, where it's like, oh, it's a script now. I always think it's nice to like build them up, have the bad outcome be the one you promote more up front, and then if you have to, if it goes the right way, it makes more sense anyway. So I always say I have a little prediction. I have a little script here, a prediction at the very beginning. I call it a script. So then later on, it makes more sense because it's nothing worse than people like, So I have this. Yeah, that was a script, by the way. Now that you've made
Yeah.
your decision.
Now it looks suspicious.
Yeah.
It's that, exactly.
Yeah. It's like paint it red, and then if you're going the more obvious way or the way you want it to go, that's cleaner. That covers itself up of all the stuff that you've gone. So it's like start going down the bad route first, and it's much easier to come onto the right road than going the other way around.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like the thing about if you have outs or something, make all the outs kind of the best outcome, really. So, like, if you've got outs A, B, and C, make C a really good ending, make B a really good ending, make it's easier said than done. But you kind of went out to just like, and written on the side of this pencil, it says you will point at this one, or there's something else in the envelope, or look at the envelope. Like, all of these are a bit, so why not make it something insane? Like this one, it's tattooed on your arm. That waiter over there has it, like something like that.
Yeah. Like if I'm a multiple out, I always go like, I do have a tattoo on my arm that's out, which is like I have the Jack of Diamonds tattooed, so I use that a bit. But I always say in my prediction, it's like I have a prediction on me, and I was like, what? Now when I said on, that's like the crucial word here because it's on
permanently.
me.
Yeah,
it's not coming off no matter what you do.
Oh, we've had full debates about it. Oh no, go on.
Oh, I once had a thing. It was a complete coincidence, but I was predicting using a chalkboard a word that someone mentioned, and the word was sunshine. And I had recently got a tattoo that was the word sunshine on me.
Nice.
And it just didn't occur to me though in the moment because I was just doing the routine. It's a word, and I predict it, blah blah blah. Came off stage, and the stage manager was like, "Why didn't you mention that it's tattooed on you?" So I was like, "That would have been good. That would have been really good."
That's brilliant. Oh no, I was just going to say that Dave said full debates about I will be holding the phone, and or now you read it now. Now I will, and I'll be like, it's an hour later, and I'll be like, Dave, I get it. They're going to read it, or you're going to read it.
It's like I'm like, it's not clear enough though. It needs to be so clear that they know what's going on. And I'm like, because the thing is like they expect it to be like that I'm going to read it, and not when I said I meant myself as like the natural assumption people make. So I'm like, I'm going to paint it red that they're reading it, and it's them who's reading it from the beginning, and it's just like it's one of those things. The free will is one of my obsessions that I'm always like messing with because it's just it's not like when you can get something like the I Will Be Done is like so good with the tarot card and stuff. I really like it. But I just want that like here's a piece of paper that says John will be holding the thing. David the magician will be holding.
The confabulation style thing where it's a letter. You've written a prediction.
Yeah.
Because also I've always thought if you do the letter style or the script style version, the classic free will, I've always thought you could do it in the way where written on the outside of the envelope is something for them to read. Like you could do it like if you gave it to them at the start of the show and came back to the end, for example, it could say, "I promise not to lose this letter," or "I owe you £50." It now is justified that if they read it later, it's I and you. It makes sense in the bubble, but then it doesn't matter if you then read it later.
Yeah,
because that's the most logical thing. Is that I wrote this, so I will be holding. Like it makes perfect sense. It was a bit like with the magician card for the "I Will Be Done." Is that, as I mentioned, just a tiny little bit at the end. It was like I have a particular outcome I prefer, so therefore I sort of force that outcome. It's not really free will. It's actually B's a cabaret is how I usually do the routine.
Yeah.
So as I'm covering my eyes, I'm telling them what to do as they pick them up. Because I prefer it if the magician's holding it. So. Yeah. But yeah, it was that moment of, and also the tarot one is like it has to be that tarot card. It has to kind of be about tarot and about predicting the future. Whereas having a letter means you can do anything now with your show and how you want to do it. Like I'm doing a show tomorrow, and it's kind of a corporate-y thing. So I have to get key messages in there. Blah, 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 blah. All that boring
synergy.
Synergy. And but they've got sort of 3 pillars that they work on. So I'm going to be using those 3 pillars and predicting which one.
Let me guess, there are 3 outs.
little bit. And one of them will be left on the table. I'll be holding one, and they'll be holding the other. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it is one of those methods you just go to and go like, it's almost like a principle. It is the free will principle, but it's like one of those. It's like saying, when people say an out to number pad. It's like there's other stuff that does actually. It's the switching pad. So Don't call it
that. I always find the weirdest was the out to lunch principle. It's just like it's
Yeah.
just gone so weird. Like why? Like the trick that was like one trick that was done with it. So
Yeah.
like, can we come up with some sort of like cooler name or something like
Yeah, something else. Someone's name or something, yeah.
The
Definitely needs
Maximus
a new name.
thing. Yeah, we would. Someone will release it in 5 years' time, pretending it's new, and it'll get a new name. We go from there.
Yes. It's like when people keep releasing Jay Sankey's Paperclipped. And it's like, it's just Jay Sankey's Paperclipped. And there's a version as well where you don't end clean, which is bizarre, but it looks sort of cleaner, but you are incredibly dirty, so to speak, at the end. It's like, just do the original. Take the paperclip off, it goes to my pocket. Done. There we go.
Stop overcomplicating it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You just want to look up to like slap them on the hand. Stop it! Stop it! It's perfect. Walk away. We finished this trick. We're on to other stuff. Stop adding strings and magnets. We don't need it. You can just use
always strings and magnets.
Absolutely. One of the segments we have on the show is the good, the bad, and the ugly, where we ask our guests to tell a performance that maybe started off good and then slowly went downhill from there.
Oh, so you mentioned this to me before, and I was like, "Oh, I've probably got a few stories." There's one. The one that immediately came to mind when you mentioned that was I was on stage a long time ago now, doing like a stage show, a little village hall, like an early stage show for me, and I was I had my own 3 envelope test, 4th-dimensional telepathy, and my particular one I was using had pre-printed cards because each person had to write a different thing. It was basically instructions for them. Write the name of your first kiss, write the name of your pet, whatever. I was doing the introduction to the routine. I reached into my pocket. I was like, oh, not there, not there, not there. Basically, the envelopes are not in my pocket. I'm like, okay, I've left them in my case, which is upstairs in the dressing room. So I looked at the wings and saw like the stage manager girl there. I said, could you go up to my dressing room? In my case, you'll see there's some 3 envelopes there. Could you just bring them down to me? Oh, great, that's all sorted. What I'll do is I'll pick the 3 people. Threw a thing out, spoke to this person, thank you. You throw it, threw a thing out, this person. You got it, great. If you guys could make your way to the stage. And as I look to go like, and now I can get the envelopes, it's all so smooth. It's going to be lovely. And I turn, and then there is the stage manager, bless her, holding these enormous sort of A4 envelopes I've never seen before in my life. And she's just beaming at me and brings them out and holds them out to me. I'm like, thank you. Well, I need some really specific envelopes because they're all set up as well for the trick. So why don't you just go get my case? Now these 3 people are here. I'm like, how's things? I then explain to them, you're going to think of this, you're going to think of this, you're going to think of this. And eventually I just look and there's some crew guy, who's just grabbed my whole bag. It's like a suitcase and just plonked it at the side of the stage. I was like, okay. I just had to get through. And then I found the envelopes and did it. And after that, I think I blacked out. I don't really remember. But the routine eventually worked. But I could sort of tell from the 3 people that were on stage, they were looking at me with those eyes of like, what's going on? Is this supposed to be happening? I remember turning and seeing that woman there holding envelopes and being like, what are those? I've never seen this before in my life.
Are they gimmicks? Please tell me they're gimmicks.
And like I've also had I was using, this is in Champions as well, in Champions of Magic. We're using a prediction using a blackboard, but not that one. And we never had an out.
There was no underarm deodorant involved.
There was no arm deodorant. Wait. Oh yes, right. No.
Yeah.
It's different. It was the one that Copperfield used for his old Date with the Magician bit. And we never had an out for it, but it could fail. There could be things that could go wrong with it. We've never had an out because I'm an idiot. But it had been fine for 200 shows. But we knew, I don't know it's gone wrong until, the crew will know before me. So there was always a cue to me that it had gone wrong, which would be I get tapped on the shoulder as they're leaving. And one night, I thought, they're taking a bit long to bring the chalkboard to, downstage. I sort of glanced, vamped for a moment at the punch on stage. And I just felt good luck. It's in my ear. Oh, and this has been set up like throughout the intermission. They're like, guess the word that's on the board. It's going to be a big thing. And I cannot remember what happened afterwards, but they clapped at the end. So that's all that really matters.
That's like fully into like autopilot mode. It's like take over.
It becomes a religious experience. Like I just left my body for a moment. It's like Doctor Strange. I got punched out of my own body for a second, and when I came to, everything was happening again.
You're watching yourself being like, God, he's good. He's really like
he's good. This guy.
He's got lots of options. So yeah, I wouldn't have thought of these. This is amazing.
And also, you were talking before about billets, where I was doing Acidus, and I was in where was I? I was in somewhere in Europe where they speak a different language, but they speak a couple of languages, one of which is French.
Could be Belgium, maybe,
Can't
because
remember what
French
it was
and German.
Yes, yeah, I think that was it. And this everyone in the audience spoke English, but not necessarily very well. This guy came up, and I said, "Write down a word." Blah 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 blah. And I went to get my peak, Acidus peak. And I was like, oh, literally nothing there. Maybe it's written in the other part, so just a little flip around, have a little look. No, nothing there. So I was like, you're going to put it in this envelope. Please check that envelope. Really take a look at it. So he had it with both hands, and I just went behind his back and opened it. And what he'd done is write on the back and in the middle, the smallest you've ever seen. I think he wrote dog, but tiny. And what's annoying with his dog is that I said to him, nothing obvious like cat or dog, but a short word like that. There you go. Nothing obvious like cat or dog. Dog. And I won't write it where he's put a line and an arrow saying to write. I'll turn it over and I'll write dog. And then fold it. Oh. Again, it's that thing of you just in the moment, you're just like, I have to think of something.
I had someone write on a card before, got the thing, was on stage, was like, John. And he was like, no. I was like, I saw John. He was like, John was the word I wrote down, but it's not the word I'm thinking of. And I was like, wow. Well, you just had two things in your brain that confused me. You prick.
I just remembered as well. I've got two. One is a good story. One's a bad story. Oh no, actually, they're both successes, which felt like failures in the moment. I was worried in the moment. First one was I was doing a lot of back-to-back shows. I was in London, and I stayed in London at a friend's. Like they were, like cabaret shows, so 10-minute spots in different things. And I was doing a billet routine, and it's like a one behind thing. So as I'm checking person A, I'm seeing person B's. And because I just kind of look and go like, yes, that was correct, and throw it. As I threw it, my brain told me, you didn't read that. I was like, oh, no. And then another part of my brain sort of clocked in and went, it said Adam. And then a third bit of my brain woke up and went, no, Adam was yesterday. I was like, oh, no. So I just sort of fished for a moment. I said, think about this person, think about the first letter. I wrote down A and said, is it an A? And she's like, no. Like, no. So I just like, nothing I can do here. So I just wrote Adam. And I said, what was the name? And she said, like, Harrison. It's not even close. I went, does Adam ring a bell? And she went, oh my goodness. I was like, oh my goodness. And it was her first kiss. And she said, Harrison was my first kiss, but I almost wrote down Adam, which is the name of my son, because that was my last kiss before I left this evening to come to the show. And I was like, oh, well, that explains it then, I guess. Just tears were rolling down my eyes. And another one was a close-up event where, when you're doing close-up, especially with Mentalism, people start to know that you're the guy that does this thing. And they sometimes come up to you and say, do the card one, or do the drawing one, or something like that. The woman came up to me and said, do the drawing one. For my husband, he wasn't here earlier. I was like, oh yeah, sure. And always when that happens, I kind of want to change up the method a bit because, I don't want them to keep seeing the same thing over and over again. And so I handed her a business card. She drew something, and I turned around and she was holding it like this. I went, she's not going to give that to me. I sort of held my hand out like this. She gave me the pen. I was like, thank you. And she was like, do you need it back? I was like, no. And I took the card, just going, I guess here comes the universal drawing, I guess. Bank spanner check. And I was like, oh, it's not really working. Maybe it's because we did it before and it's harder to predict the second time round. And I drew the universal drawing and I showed it to her. And as you know, it's like a roundish shape and a sort of pointy, almost triangle shape. And I turned it around and said, does this mean anything to you? And she went to her husband and she said, see, I told you. And I was like, oh, what does this mean? And I went, oh, what do you mean? And she said, well, I drew a circle, but I was thinking of a triangle. I was just like, oh my God. Go around high five everyone in the room.
There is nothing worse than that moment.
Yeah, you turn around and they're like,
I had someone at a party before, and they were like, "Oh, Steve can read your mind," kind of a thing, and the host of the party kind of thing was like, "You got to do this thing for Andrew." So I was like, "Okay." So I go up to Andrew's table and I sit down and talk to Andrew. I automatically realize that Andrew's an asshole on every level, and is going to be beyond awkward. So I was like, "Just think of a celebrity and write it down. Take one of my cards." So I'm taking it back off him, put it into my wallet, and when I look at it, I'm like, I get my peak, but my face could only have been, what the fuck is that? Like me, because it was my head was like, there is no celebrity in the world with that name. But what he had done was he had written Matt Damon, but he had spelt it TTAM for Matt and spelled everything backwards.
right.
Just to be a complete tool. So I reached into the wallet to take out another card and goes, I'll get another crack at this. Maybe it's some, I don't know, African president or some shit. So I opened it, try to get a card to get another peek, and then I realize it's Matt Damon backwards. So I delay, and I was like, I'm not going to pick up on this, but I'm going to pick on something else. So I started writing down like other films and bits and pieces that Matt Damon was in, everything but Matt Damon. And then I just said, have a look at that later. And I don't think I got it, but have a look at it later. And I had written down like The Departed, and I had written down like all these movies that he was in. But he knew, and I knew what he had done. But yeah, it was awkward.
Yeah.
Anytime you get someone who draws something rude or writes a swear word, I just like, I can't do anything with this now in front of all these people.
Yeah.
Like at this family event that I'm the stranger at. And it's just like
Mark Hall. Remember that? Remember that story that he's good, the bad, and the ugly was horrendous.
Horrendous. He was on stage at a cruise show, and he had someone write down their pet's name, and they wrote down the N-word, and that's where he got his peak.
So he couldn't write it and he couldn't say it. He just had to close the show on it. It's just like,
yeah, thanks so much. I'm
never gonna guess that.
Yeah,
never.
Also, it's like, I'm not going anywhere. So it's like, I think, oh God. Like, so what do you do?
You can't get out of it. I was at a college thing for graduation for new doctors, and it was a group of new female doctors hanging out together. Steve was at the gig as well, and I walked up. I had them do a drawing duplication, and they put it in my hand, and they couldn't stop laughing, and they weren't looking at me. So I had the drawing in my hand, and I just went and put it back down, and it was an ejaculating penis. So I just went, "You drew a penis, didn't you?" And they were like, "Oh my God, how did he know?" And I was like, my peak was literally cool.
Yeah, I took that like it's like there's a wallet there, and you're just kind of like, they're looking around, they're chatting, it's kind of go, actually, why don't you keep hold of it for me? It's like, oh. Like sometimes I miss those, but there's so many eyes just staring at you. You can just be like, just move around. You can get away with so much.
Yeah, it's like that old missing the pocket thing. But every time if you just miss the pocket, even the first time, you can just look at it and then just put it back on the table.
Yeah,
like, I can't find my pocket. Forget about it.
It's funny though, seeing people who aren't very good at the pretending to miss their pocket. They're just like, they're just huge actors. It's like pantomiming. It's like they're doing a charade. It's like, what's the charade here?
It sounds like.
Anytime I get situations as well where they're like, "Oh, I'm not giving it to you. You don't need it." I'm like, I think I'm going to force the card and do a one ahead. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
and now I've been, it's like, one ahead time. One ahead is coming. I see it. Here we go.
You could have a whole. I will be holding the billet. No, you will be holding the billet.
Yeah, it's absolutely. There's some horror stories.
You always want a clever answer to that. Sorry, forgive you. There's always that. You always want a clever answer to that. Like, what am I thinking right now? Or can you guess my name? Because I did hear about there was a guy playing the cello who was like a busker playing the cello, and then he had cards in his pocket that said, "You are the blank number of person to say to me, that's a big violin, isn't it?" Because people would say it to him all the time. Like he was traveling on the tube or whatever in London. They'd be like, "That's a big violin." He had cards printed saying, "The 100th person to say that to me." It had his details on. You kind of want like a clever. I've always wanted like a pre-printed card saying like blank, just to hand out for those. So therefore, you've kind of done a trick and they're impressed, but you can just walk away from that arsehole. It's just
Steve uses a clicker.
I think it's a David Williamson idea, and you take out a clicker, so they go, "Can you make my wife disappear?" And you go, "Ah." So good. Can you turn this fiver into a 50? Can you, do you know the lotto numbers? Whatever it is, you go, "Ah." So good. You can vanish it if you want to.
Yeah, you want like
it's a good bit.
Yeah, it's great.
You want that like your name gag or something, like your card just printed. Oh, what you're thinking? If I had "what you're thinking" written on a card inside my pocket, would that be amazing? Yes, what you're thinking. There you go. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just like walk away. Yeah.
It kind of feels like then you just have to keep doing all of them. Then you have to do the lady gag. Then you have to do the barcode gag. You just keep going. So you're happy with yourself now. You brought this on yourself, but you just keep doing all those gags.
The no gag works well for that. It's like, okay, you think of something, I'll write down. Do you know what I wrote down? No? Perfect, thank you. See you, bye. I'm out of here. Thanks so much.
There's also one I wrote about, which was, I'm going to write down a 4-letter word, and it's something you find on the bottom of bird cages. Right. There you go. Grit. Thank you very much. You just walk away.
I was thinking, I was talking to my wife about it. It was like a good presentation you could do with like, I want you to think of any 5-letter word. Okay. Is the word Ariel? No. Are any of the letters in that word, and are any of them in the right place? I just started doing Wordle. That's 5-letter word. You're like, I'll get it in less than 6 guesses. I promise you. You just need to tell me, is it in the word, and is it in the right place? That's all I need to know. I'll figure this out. It does show that you can guess it. In that many goals.
I haven't really got into the Wordle thing, but I have heard the thing of like, oh, it's like a progressive anagram. So you guess, it's like everyone now is guessing star signs. It's not happening. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, people will start figuring it out. Like, we're screwed. We can't do this anymore. I just want to say we've gone an hour and 12 minutes, so I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. And it's we've only scratched the surface, so much more to talk about. So we have to leave it open for part 2. You got to keep the suspense going. It's been absolutely brilliant. So for people who want to reach out to you and connect online and all that sort of stuff, where's the best place for them to pester you?
To pester me, probably on Instagram, because I don't really look at my Twitter, and Facebook's just just noise. So Instagram is best, and my Instagram handle is Alex the Mind Reader, all one word, and you'll find me.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's great. And if you could, for anyone watching this, you could like us on Instagram as well, Deceive Reality Ireland, I think it is, and then subscribe to the channel, like the video, all the YouTube stuff that I have to say, and follow the audio only version as well. So that would really help us out. So we really appreciate it, everyone, for listening. So thanks again to Alex for coming on. We really appreciate it, and definitely recommend the products that we've talked about as well. So go spend and support creators. Just
spend.
Yeah.
Spend. Just keep spending.
Keep spending. And we'll definitely be back again next week with another episode. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll talk to everyone again next time. So thanks everyone.
I won't be in the lobby of a hotel. Thanks again.
Ruining our audio.
Ruining the audio. There was people with trolleys. There was a guy with like a fucking whole thing of linen. I was like, here, I'm clearly doing a podcast.
Joy to it.
Cool.
Professional as always. Talk to you later. See you later. Bye.